let's bring this Game Boy Advance into 2024 with help from the Squirtle Squad. What's going on, guys? My name's Adam and welcome back to Super Effective Retros. And today we're talking about a game console that came out in 2001, the Game Boy Advance. The Game Boy Advance was a console that I never owned as a kid. Never fortunate to have one of these when I was growing up, but it was revolutionary at the time. If you were on the playground in 2001 and you had a Game Boy Advance, you were the coolest kid in the class. I was always jealous that I never kind of got around to getting a Game Boy Advance. I kind of dipped out of Game Boys in that generation. I kind of lost interest, got more into football, more into girls, that kind of thing, you know how it goes. And I didn't get back into modern consoles until about the DS era, really. But now that I'm older, a little bit smarter, I've come back around to the idea of modding a Game Boy Advance. And what a mod have I got to show you today. We're going to take that Game Boy Advance, we're going to put it in a brand new Squirtle Squad shell, and we're going to put an IPS screen into it as well, and it's going to look like this. You can even see a mini me. But come along for the ride, guys, as we mod this Game Boy Advance into a Squirtle Squad IPS screen. So now that we've got the screen into the new shell, we're going to start now resoldering those wires from the new IPS board onto the Game Boy Advance itself. There's 3 wires to worry about. You've got your left, your right, and your select buttons, and they're used to control the brightness on the IPS screen. So we're just getting the wires ready, and we're going to start with the select button. So that's normally in around the middle of the board. We can see me soldering there. And now we're doing the left and the right. Just make sure that when you are soldering onto the Game Boy Advance, they've got the right orientation, because when you flip the Game Boy Advance over, your left to your right is going to be the wrong way around. So you just need to make sure that you've got the right orientation. And I normally solder them onto the test pads for L and for R. But once you've got those soldering in, it's time for the buttons. So get those fresh buttons and membranes put into the new shell. So on this Squirtle Squad Game Boy Advance, we've got some lovely blue buttons and some new membranes as well, just so that the connections onto the board are going to be as crisp as possible. You haven't got any misinputs when trying to move those directional buttons. And for A and B, also make sure you get your start and select ones in there. That's important because the select button is used for the brightness control, and then you just flip the Game Boy Advance back into its shell. Just make sure that it's the right orientation. You can kind of click it and feel when it's all in the right place. It will feel like a clicking sensation when you get it into the shell. And now we're ready to get the ribbon cable back into the Game Boy Advance from the new IPS screen. And once you've done that, you're pretty much ready to screw everything back in place. So use some tweezers to get those tabs secured in place. And let's get the shell back on and see how it turns out. And there we go, guys, a Squirtle Squad IPS Game Boy Advance. One of my favourite projects I think I've done so far. I mean, there's only two on the channel, but I've done a few off screen. I think this one's got to be up there. One of my favourite Game Boy Advance shells that I've had to work on so far. But if you really like it, you can actually purchase this Game Boy Advance from my eBay store. The link is in the description down below. I am based in the UK, as you can probably tell from the voice. So all you United Kingdom viewers out there who, like me, watched all these amazing, like, offshore American guys doing these amazing Game Boy Advances, but the prices were absolutely extortionate, I've got your back. I've got your back. Links in the description down below. But that's the end of this one, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Please like, subscribe, and leave a comment on what you think of the Squirtle Squad shell. And I will see you in the next one.